Hello, I'm Dr. Larry Jones, a retired pediatrician and now ADHD and life coach. And I have as my guest here today Dr. Miller Boyd. And I'd like for him to talk a little bit about himself and to sort of get a feel of him as the person, the wonderful person he is that I've known for quite a while. So really happy to have him here as my guest. So I'll let you introduce yourself.
Sure, Dr. Miller W. Boyd III, historian based out of St. Louis. Attended Xavier University of Louisiana for my undergrad. Did my master's in African American Studies at Boston University and my doctorate in early American history at the University of Mississippi. Taught at the University of Mississippi for 6 years. But now I'm back in St. Louis teaching at a private high school known as Whitfield in St. Louis County. Still a very active scholar, lecturer, consultant, and just happy to be here. Also, a person who has ADD.
Okay, very good. Well, on the subject of ADD, ADHD, what happened that you felt that you were, I guess, possibly underperforming or not able to get things done the way you want?
Well, I think starting is probably as early as late elementary school. I knew that, I worked hard, always wanted to please my parents and always wanted to please my teachers, but the amount of work that I was putting in did not equal to good grades. And it hit me like a ton of bricks in high school, where I attended a very competitive school. And fortunately, when I went off to college, I was inspired to work harder than I had before, but yet what I was able to produce was probably not equivalent to what other people were able to produce. What I tried to do was overcompensate by working harder than most. And that led to a lot of stress, of course. But it became a standard, and I became normal. It became normal for me. And when I was in my doctoral program, that's kind of when I finally hit that ceiling. I was the last person in my class to graduate. And even though I was putting in a lot of hours, very dedicated to researching and writing, and had done some really groundbreaking research, my dissertation still was not finished. And I was in my going into my eighth year. And it was extraordinarily frustrating and very stressful. I was coming from campus one day and I had NPR on, and they had a piece about adult ADHD. And the person talking described their symptoms and just kind of the things that really led them to get eventually tested. And when that person talked about those symptoms, I identified with all of them. And it was almost like a revelation. Ironically, the next day, the Huffington Post had something about adult ADHD. This was August of 2015. I'll never forget it. And it said to me, like, I need to go ahead and get tested. I went ahead, got tested on campus. And when I got the results back, it was interesting. The tester called me and said, I knew you had it before you even started the test. Because as he was giving instructions, I was kind of jumping ahead. And that led to an eventual official diagnosis that led to me consulting with a physician who specialized in it and me eventually getting on medication. That actually changed my life dramatically because within 8 months of starting medication, I was able to finish and defend my dissertation. I mean, it was like night and day. And I had talked about before, like how other people are able to finish the task, and
Yes.
I'm not able to do that. It almost made me feel normal, in a sense. And normal is different for different people, but in terms of me being able to start a task and get it done, it saved my life.
Very good. Very good. So, as you were making this transition, what sort of things did you do differently?
Well, I think a lot of the things that I had tried to do before, now I was able to actually do them. Sitting and focusing, even if it's like editing a line of text that you've written, making sure things flow in a seamless fashion, things are organized, and that became possible because when you're writing a dissertation, a couple hundred pages of text, research, citations, you know, when you're trying to edit a 40-page chapter, you sometimes are going through word by word, and because you've written it, you might miss things that might need to be there. My dissertation chair was actually frustrated with me because he's like, "You were supposed to edit this." I said, "I did." Like, "But you're missing words here and there." He's like, "Your research is spectacular, but the way you're writing, there are things that are missing here, and how are you doing that?" And after I got diagnosed and after things changed, I mean, my ability to edit, to write, to put things in the proper order, I mean, it changed everything.
So your advisor was saying that you were missing words in the text in terms of the flow and meaning of the sentences. So, but once you got on medication, then you could see those gaps.
I could see everything. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yes, it's like going from singing black and white to singing in 3D color.
Right. Fantastic. So, well, happy to hear that medication made a significant difference in terms of your ability to perform and to continue your passion. But in terms of your level of comfort, how are you feeling now? Are there some remnants of the difficulties that you had in the past still there that you continue to work on?
I think after having it for, well, having it undiagnosed for maybe close to 40 years, there are small things. You know, there are days when you get up and you forget to take your medication, and you can see when you go to a store and you're trying to make a decision on what to buy, and you're sitting looking at prices for like 30 minutes. I think it makes me more aware of not only the importance of taking medication and getting cognitive therapy, but also recognizing those traits in other people who might also need that assistance. That's why, you know, I'm very open with the fact that I have ADD. And because I think by being very transparent and talking about my journey, I think it helps other people realize what they might have. But my thing is that you suffer with ADD in so many ways, and if you can alleviate that suffering, not only yourself and other people, I think it's really important to talk about.
And we appreciate your openness in terms of being willing to talk about it, because it is a personal journey that everyone takes with quote unquote neurodiversity versus the neurotypicals, people who are out there who have quote unquote normal brain connections. We know that ours are a little bit different. So in appreciating that, you know, looking back in terms of the work that you had done prior to getting on medication, what really propelled you, kept you going in terms of to get to that goal of completing?
Well, I think it's like I sacrificed a lot. I went back to graduate school for my master's at 28, started my doctoral program at 32, and I basically given up everything because I believed that this was the path to go on and something I believed in. And once you invest that much time and effort into something like a doctoral program, you want to see it to fruition. I mean, it's when you especially for history, our PhDs are usually 8 years almost. And for me to get gotten the 7th or 8th year and not finished, it would have been, I would hate to say, a waste of time, but I really wanted to get it done because I think, you know, I had some really important work to share with the world, and I was just frustrated why I couldn't get it done. And
yeah, and I must say, as I mentioned, I had the opportunity to hear one of your talks here in St. Louis. I was really impressed at the level and detail of the research that you've done. I was really impressed. So I really commend you on one, continuing your work, and two, sharing that passion of that work with students that you're working with at Whitfield, and I'm sure in many other ways as well. And we'll definitely be looking forward to that book when it comes out.
yes.
But as a person with ADD, ADHD, how do you view yourself now versus before?
Well, I think before I saw the potential. You know, I was intelligent, I was hardworking, and I think I was always trying to realize that potential. Now I think with the medication, I've realized the potential and I'm building upon that. And, you know, success is not an endpoint, it's kind of a plateau and then you step it up. But it's a lot easier for me to not only plan and work towards a goal, but actually achieve.
So everybody talks about superpowers. What would you say are your superpowers?
Ah, wow. Before and after diagnosis,
That's fine.
I would say before, you know, in crisis situations, and you see this with other ADD people, that there's a certain thing that kicks in that makes you really good in multitasking. I think afterwards, I think my attention to detail, my dedication to research, um, yeah, and I think my work ethic really is a superpower. Um, my ability to find things that other people cannot find, and almost this laser focus on trying to solve historical mysteries.
Very good. Very good. For our listeners, what advice would you give to someone who's in, let's say, thinking that they may have ADD, ADHD? What advice would you give them?
I think the big thing is to get tested. I know that there was a stigma attached, you know, growing up in the 80s, people who were hyperactive. And I think now, especially as adults, we look back and we start hearing the stories of other people and we start noticing things that we didn't notice before, especially in the age of technology where we are distracted by more things. And my thing is, you might have ADD. And if you have suffered, if there has been anxiety, depression attached to it, you know, there might be a solution, but you never know unless you get tested. And I think getting tested and maybe even having that affirmation like, hey, you're not crazy, you're not lazy. You actually have a different way of learning and that there's a way to adjust, I think is a relief for a lot of people. It's an answer that a lot of people have been searching for a long time.
Very good. And for those people who are diagnosed, any comments versus medication or without medication?
You know, for the people who have talked to me who've gotten a diagnosis, most take medication, and it has made a difference for them. And so I'm an advocate for medication. You know, one medication might work for me, it might not work for you. So not trying to experiment, not trying to borrow somebody else's medication just to see. Talk to a doctor. When I first was diagnosed, they tried me on different medications and some worked. Some gave me heart palpitations, and then we settled on, I believe it was a third medication that actually gave me the therapeutic benefits that I needed without the heart palpitations.
Very good. And so hopefully this will be helpful for listeners out there that there is a solution, there is a path forward, there is a clear path to resilience with getting that evaluation, medication if needed, and possibly some cognitive therapy. But most importantly is being self-aware. And I really would like to thank Dr. Boyd for his time today.
Thank you, Dr. Jones.
Working with us. And we hope that this interview will be helpful to listeners out there. Again, I thank you all for listening. And again, I thank Dr. Boyd for being here with us today to tell his story.
Thank you, Dr. Jones.
All right. Thank you.